We are delighted to have someone special with us today, Mariah Richardson, who is now mostly doing playwriting, but she's done everything else in theater, I think, acting and directing, coming up anyway, and she also writes things that aren't plays, some terrific little children's books, and then she writes plays with those characters also. So all the way it goes, but what's really coming up almost immediately is that Mariah is writing the Shakespeare in the Streets play for the St. Louis Shakespeare Festival. And this is a very strange setup that you're doing, isn't it? It's called Love at the River's Edge.
Yes.
And which Shakespeare are you adapting?
As You Like It.
As You Like It.
Yes.
What river might this be?
Well, there are two rivers.
Two rivers?
Well, actually, there are technically three rivers.
Oh, my God.
But there's the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Now, how do they all work into this?
Well, this year is Shakespeare in the Streets is a little different than years past. This year, instead of one community we would work with, we're working with two communities. We're working with Normandy, actually the 24-1 community, and working with Brussels, Illinois, which is a tiny town that's just across the river, across the Mississippi.
Right. Brussels kind of sprouts there out of
Yes, yes, it does. So we're working with them, and so the show is really interesting this year. So we'll do the first half in Normandy. So we'll be at the intersection of Page and Ferguson. We'll do half the show, and then we'll take the people, we'll get on a bus, we'll go to the Golden Eagle Ferry, and we'll get on the ferry, right on the river's edge. We'll get on the ferry and go across the river, and then on the other side there's a restaurant called Kinder's, and we'll be on a lot that they have, and we'll do the second half of the show. So we'll bring people from Brussels first to Normandy, and then people all the way back over there, and then bring the people who are from the Missouri side back.
Oh, so you'll have both going on at the same time?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Well, actually, the show's not going on at the same time. What's happening is that we wanted to do a true exchange. And so we're bringing people from Brussels in to see the beginning of the show.
Oh, I see.
And then we'll take them and people from 24-1 and anybody else that wants to go back to Brussels.
And then the people from 24-1
will
are
come
brought
back.
back.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't have to hitchhike our way back.
No. And we're just hoping that as Adam Flores would say, the creek don't rise, because it's really been an interesting journey with this play, because Brussels, we'd have the teaching artists worked with students at the Brussels Elementary and High School. And then we had teaching artists that worked at Normandy High School to work with the students to help devise the work. Now in Brussels, we know that the flood came. So what would take you roughly about an hour to get to Brussels started taking us an hour and a half. And then it took us 3 hours. And then when the levee breached in Harding, it took 4 hours to get from St. Louis to Brussels.
Well, and they suspend ferry service sometimes.
Yes.
Don't they?
Oh, yeah. That's why it was taking us so long. Because once they cut off, so the first time they cut off the Golden Eagle Ferry. Then we would go and we could go through Grafton and take the ferry.
Yeah.
Then once that ferry was out, then you have to go all the way around. We had to go to Harding, and once that was out, that was when they were having to make that 4-hour trek one way.
So this was the teachers working with the teaching artists working with the students.
Yes, not the playwright, the teaching artist.
You didn't have to do that.
I didn't have to do that.
Good,
yes.
Good. So I don't want you to give us any spoilers, but what are you doing with As You Like It to put it at the river's edge or whatever?
Well, you know, when we work with the community, we find out what the community wants us to know, wants the world to know about them. And so we were looking at, and you know, the love stories are still happening, but we have this country and city.
Right.
So Normandy being the city, Brussels being the country. And how are they alike? How are they different? How can they get along? What kind of exchange we can do? And so that's what's happening with the play. So no spoilers.
Okay. So we have the country people in Brussels, and are they? Do they have a peach orchard or what?
Oh yeah, there are plenty. The peach orchards show up in the play.
Good.
Floods show up in the play.
Oh.
Yeah. So mainly those those two things.
Now, in the past, the cast has been a mixture of professional actors and
Yes.
people from the community. Is
Yes.
that also true?
Also true. So I'm not sure how many. I wasn't at casting. I did see the cast because I was at the first two rehearsals to make sure that the script was working, and so we have. But I asked specifically that there be an equal number of people, residents from both areas, to be in the play.
Yeah.
Aside from the professional actors.
That always seems to work very well too in
Yes.
the past ones.
Yes.
Now, who are some of the professional? I mean, they're the people we would know probably.
Eric Dean White.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yes, and
Very good.
let me see, Chris Ware.
Yes.
Who else is? We have Anita Jackson.
Ah.
Oh.
Yes, and who else can I think of?
Well.
That's all I can think of
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, well, but yeah, people we know. Yeah, and it's sort of interesting because not long after that, we'll be seeing the Variety Children's Theater show, which does the same thing, mixes professional actors with, especially, they make such great use of the variety kids, as they call them, the kids with some kind of developmental difficulty.
Yeah.
And it's such a great experience for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
You talk to those professional actors, and this is the most moving thing I've ever done. And I think maybe it's so great to work with the people. Now, what sort of things have the Normandy people wanted to push about them?
Well, we talk about places, landmarks, tradition, because that's a big thing. Everybody has tradition.
Right.
And people tend to think that if you don't live in their community, if you're not part of their community, that their traditions somehow are so very different from other people's traditions. But really, it's all about the same. Everybody is about family and community.
Yeah.
And so we mention things. And even with the 24/1, we kind of do it even bigger regionally. So a city. So we talk about a brewery in the play. It's fictional, but we talk about, which is something that is very much St. Louis, very much our region, and that's something that in Brussels they love their beer too. I went to their picnic. They have picnics, so that's in the play. Because they have the Trinity Parish up there. It's 3 different churches in 3 different little towns. And they do these picnics. And one of the staples in the picnic is turtle soup. So
Really?
I went to Brussels picnic a couple of weeks ago and got turtle soup. And I tell you, they make turtle soup in huge vats like this. Huge, that they have to use a paddle to make this stuff. And then you see that people have put in their orders. So in the tent, there's just tables of different size containers where people have ordered their turtle soup that are not even coming to the picnic. And you have to think about it. Brussels is about 151 people.
Oh, really? Is that all?
Yeah, but people from all over Calhoun County come to these picnics.
Yeah.
And everybody gets their turtle soup. And I had that turtle soup, and it was yummy.
And they really make it with turtles.
They do, but it's mostly ground chicken.
Yeah.
Now, what was it like for you to engage with Shakespeare as you were writing your play?
Well, I was surprised at how well I understood Shakespeare when I was writing the play, because I'm not trained in Shakespeare. I have a master's in playwriting. And I have a minor in theater in my undergraduate, which was more about performance than it was about learning text. And Shakespeare, if you think about Shakespeare in his time and you think about our time, Shakespeare was probably more or less a spoken word artist, or because of the language that he uses, seems to be more like he was a person that could be in hip hop today.
Yeah.
And so it's not difficult for me to understand him at all. So I
That's
enjoy
interesting
it.
because in his day, people didn't talk about going to see a play; they talked about going to hear a play.
Yes.
So, as you say, the words were so crucial.
Have you tried to incorporate some of the original?
Oh,
into
some of As You Like It Is in the play. Some of Shakespeare's
Is there a
work is in-
wrestling match, or
Oh no, but there is a match, and it's gonna be and it comes at the top of the show. So,
Right.
Yes. Oh, you have to see this.
I
is gonna,
will.
This is gonna be fun. But it's not a wrestling
Well, now,
match.
and when you're over in Brussels and they're out, killing deer and all that, but I guess they're not killing. But are they eating turtle soup?
They're eating turtles. Well, turtle soup is mentioned for
Okay,
sure, for
good,
sure. But yes, and hunting, and peach orchards.
And peach orchards.
Yes.
Now, when are we going to be able to see this wonderful work?
So it goes up on the 13th and 14th of September. The show starts at 7. But if you want to make that journey from 24-1 to Brussels, then you have to make sure you go online and click on the link so that you can reserve your spot, because Shakespeare Festival has to know how many buses they're going to need for people.
Right.
Because if the turnout is anything like it normally is, that's a lot of people.
Yes.
But we are asking people to spend about 3.5 hours with us. So
Yeah.
and that's a big chunk of time. But on the 13th and 14th, 7 p.m. Get there 6:30, because there's going to be some eats that are going to be local for each community. Yeah.
Well, judging by the track record, it should be a great time.
Well, I hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen some other work by you recently at Jazz at the Bistro.
That was the Thelonious Monk story.
Where did he get that name? Thelonious Monk.
He was named after a relative. He was somebody in his family was named Thelonious.
But
Yeah.
that was so well done.
Thank you. I really had a good time with that. It was a lot of research, and I used Robin Kelly's book on Thelonious Monk. And that book is dense, and there's not a whole bunch else out there that is as what's the word I want to use, that is as comprehensive as this piece.
Yeah.
And Robin Kelly does all kinds of other art, documentary stuff, but this piece, I just was fascinated at his journey coming from North Carolina, and his mother and father actually both were activists, because their parents had come out of Reconstruction. And actually they had come out of Reconstruction. His parents had come, because Monk was born, I believe, in 1913. And so he makes his way to New York, and they find out that he is sort of a prodigy. But the idea that this man did this music, that people didn't understand how he used dissonance. We talk about harmony all the time, and even when we talk about relations with other people, we talk about how you are you and I am who I am, but we can have harmony. But he was able to make beautiful music out of dissonance, which was fascinating. And then the last 10 years of his life, he didn't play.
Yeah, there was a lot of dissonance in his own personality.
Well, he suffered from mental illness.
Yeah.
And that was what the play was focusing on, also, his mental illness.
Yeah, it's hard to do a play about musical theory and harmony and dissonance, I guess. But he did have, you can recognize his music almost immediately, because he had that kind of harmonic progression in it, and the little twists in the melodies that he had, and they really, and jazz musicians love it.
Yeah.
Everybody plays Monk sometime or other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also did a wonderful play about Annie Malone, the great St. Louis entrepreneur, which I learned so much from about her.
Oh, good. And that was another project I really enjoyed, too, because I went to school at Sumner High School, so I was in the Ville. And I just didn't know a whole lot about her until I really did the research on her. And I'm just, every time somebody mentions the name Madam C.J. Walker, not taking anything away from her, but there would be no Madam C.J. Walker had there been no Annie Malone, because Madam C.J. Walker worked for Annie Malone. So
And we still have the Annie Malone Day.
yeah.
So that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could talk about more of your plays that you've done and all of that, but you make me even more eager to get to the River's Edge.
Oh, good, good.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Maria Richardson, thank you very much for joining us on Two on the Aisle.
Thank you.
And we'll be following you as you continue writing.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you,
Thank
Jerry.
you.